We're going to have to cancel tomorrow. Brielle isn't in a good place after what happened with the brand. She's humiliated. We need to prioritize her mental health right now. I know you'll understand. The text came in at 11:38 p.m., less than 12 hours before my college graduation ceremony. 6 hours before the dinner reservation I had booked and paid for myself. 2 hours after I finished pressing my gown and laying my cap on the edge of my desk like proof that I had survived something. Brielle, 27, lifestyle influencer, had lost a sponsorship that afternoon. A skincare company had dropped her after a video surfaced of her mocking a follower. It wasn't a scandal. It was a consequence. But in our house, Brielle's consequences were natural disasters, and natural disasters required evacuation plans. My graduation was apparently the evacuation. I read the message twice, then I locked my phone and set it face down on my nightstand. I didn't cry, I didn't call, I didn't draft a response I would later delete. I just sat there in the quiet and listened to the hum of the air conditioner in a house I had helped keep running for years. Downstairs, I could hear my mother on the phone, already rescheduling my dinner reservation. That was the moment their daughter disappeared. What remained was the strategist. Have you ever had your milestone sacrificed for someone else's chaos? To understand why that text didn't break me, you have to understand the architecture of my family. We lived in Westchester County, New York, in a gated neighborhood where every lawn looked professionally edited and every mailbox had a discreet security camera. Our house had columns, symmetrical windows, and a foyer designed for entrances. From the outside, we looked established. From the inside, we were curated. My father, Richard Hart, worked in private equity. He wasn't known for his deals. He was known for how he talked about them. He collected watches, buzzwords, and investor lunches the way other men collected hobbies. My mother, Dana Hart, floated between charity boards and fundraising galas, always photographed, always positioned just slightly left of whoever actually mattered. Then there was Brielle. 27, lifestyle influencer. Her income depended on lighting, angles, and discount codes. Her personality shifted depending on which brand had wired the deposit. She wasn't malicious. She was hollow in a very expensive way. And then there was me. I built my father's investor decks when his numbers didn't line up. I edited Brielle's captions so she wouldn't accidentally insult the demographic she was paid to inspire. I balanced the household accounts, tracked subscription renewals, scheduled appointments, confirmed flights, managed contractors, and quietly corrected mistakes before they became public embarrassments. They performed success. I maintained functionality. They didn't raise daughters. They outsourced responsibility. For a long time, I didn't see myself as exploited. I saw myself as responsible. People like to ask why someone stays in a dynamic like that. Why not leave sooner? Why keep fixing problems for people who barely acknowledge you? The answer isn't weakness, it's conditioning. When you grow up in a house where affection is inconsistent and praise is transactional, you adapt. Some people fight. Some people flee. I learned to fawn. The fawn response doesn't look dramatic. It looks competent. It looks agreeable. It looks like the child who anticipates needs before they're spoken. The one who smooths tension before it erupts. The one who makes herself indispensable so she never risks being discarded. In our house, attention was currency, and Brielle spent it loudly. I earned mine quietly. I believed usefulness was the price of belonging. I thought love was earned in spreadsheets. If my father closed a deal smoothly, it was because I'd reorganized his data at midnight. If my mother's gala ran without incident, it was because I'd triple-confirmed vendors and seating charts. If Brielle's online persona felt polished, it was because I had sanded down the rough edges. Every solved problem felt like a deposit into an invisible account labeled approval. I didn't realize there was no balance. I wasn't staying because I was loyal. I was staying because I had confused utility with worth. And when utility becomes your identity, walking away feels like erasing yourself. I just hadn't realized yet that I was already invisible. The morning of my graduation, the house was already in motion. Suitcases rolled across marble floors. My mother's voice carried from the kitchen, coordinating airport pickup in Aspen. Brielle had decided she needed a reset. A mountain backdrop, a luxury spa, curated silence. My ceremony conflicted with her recovery narrative. They left before I did. On the kitchen counter, next to the fruit bowl no one ate from, sat an envelope with my name written in my mother's careful script. Inside was a $100 check and a printed card that said, "So proud of you." The message wasn't signed. It felt less like a celebration and more like a receipt. I drove myself to campus. The auditorium was loud with applause, camera flashes, families leaning into the aisle to get better angles. I scanned the crowd once, knowing what I would find. 2 empty seats where my parents' names had been registered. No frantic arrival. No last-minute excuse whispered in my ear. When my name was called, I walked across the stage with a steady pace. I shook hands, I smiled for the photographer. I held the diploma like it belonged to someone else. I didn't cry, I didn't text them, I didn't even check my phone. Something inside me shifted, not violently, not dramatically. It was quieter than that. A hinge turning, a door closing. I stopped trying to be seen. I started planning to disappear. Disappearing isn't an impulse, it's logistics. By the time I crossed that graduation stage, I had already been planning for 4 months. Not emotionally, operationally. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and redirected my paycheck there in increments small enough not to trigger questions. I separated every shared subscription, every auto payment tied to my name. I requested a full credit freeze as a precaution, something I had learned from cleaning up one too many of my father's financial oversights. I registered a small LLC online for consulting work I was already doing quietly on the side. Under that entity, I leased a studio apartment 30 minutes away. Month to month, no forwarding address. I bought a new phone and transferred only the numbers I chose to keep. At night, after the house went quiet, I audited the cloud storage. I removed my biometric access from shared devices. I revoked my admin privileges from family accounts. I changed passwords I had created years ago: banking, utilities, investment dashboards, Brielle's management portal. Not maliciously, just conclusively. On my final morning in that house, I packed 1 suitcase and 1 banker's box. My diploma, my laptop, my passport, documents that proved I existed outside of them. I left my old phone on my desk. On the kitchen island, where my mother staged floral arrangements for charity photos, I placed a single sheet of paper. 1 sentence. I am no longer available for operational support. I walked out without slamming the door. I didn't need drama. Gravity would handle the rest. The first week was quiet, too quiet. I imagined they assumed I was proving a point, that I would return once the inconvenience set in. But inconvenience has a way of compounding when no one understands the system holding it together. It started with the Wi-Fi. The service lapsed because the contract renewal reminder, usually flagged and negotiated by me, went unanswered. Brielle went live to her followers and froze mid-sentence. Within minutes, her comments filled with speculation. 2 days later, my father missed an investor meeting in Manhattan. The calendar alert hadn't been synced properly. The briefing notes weren't in his inbox. He showed up 30 minutes late without the revised projections I had rewritten the night before he practiced them. My mother's charity gala followed. The florist overcharged, the caterer arrived with the wrong menu, seating charts weren't updated, small mistakes, expensive ones. Brielle forgot a paid brand shoot because no one confirmed the time zone. By week 2, the cracks widened. My father lost a funding round after an investor cited organizational instability. My mother was quietly removed from a committee after donors complained. Brielle posted a tearful video blaming toxic energy and turned off comments when the backlash grew louder. My phone began lighting up. "Stop being dramatic. This family needs you. You're being selfish." They left voicemails like I had run away in anger instead of precision. That's when it crystallized. They didn't miss me. They missed the infrastructure. The house had never been stable. It was staged, and I had been the foundation pretending to be furniture. 3 months after I left, I decided to upgrade my apartment. Not out of impulse, out of math. My consulting contracts had stabilized, my savings had grown. I found a one-bedroom condo in White Plains, floor-to-ceiling windows, secure building, the kind of place that felt like permanence instead of escape. The leasing manager smiled through most of the application process, until she didn't. She cleared her throat and said there was an issue with my credit file. "There's significant outstanding debt," she added carefully, as if the words might bruise me. I didn't argue. I thanked her, walked back to my car, opened my laptop, and pulled my full credit report. There were 3 new accounts, 2 high-limit credit cards, 1 personal loan. Total balance, $190,000. The opening dates began 2 weeks after I moved out. The transaction history read like Brielle's Instagram feed: luxury resort deposits, designer boutiques, a down payment on a leased Range Rover she had captioned as manifested, flight upgrades, a marketing agency retainer. It wasn't random spending, it was structured. Every charge aligned with the moment they lost access to me. I felt something settle in my chest, but it wasn't panic. It was clarity. They couldn't control my labor anymore, so they tried to control my identity. This wasn't favoritism. It wasn't dysfunction. It wasn't a messy family disagreement. It was identity theft, federal identity theft. The shift was immediate. The narrative in my mind changed from wounded daughter to primary victim in a financial crime. And crimes aren't solved with conversations. They're handled with documentation. I didn't call my parents. I called a forensic accountant. Within 48 hours, I had a full audit of the fraudulent accounts, IP addresses, signature discrepancies, timestamps, purchase locations. Patterns, evidence, not emotion. Then I retained an attorney. Marissa Cole specialized in family litigation and financial fraud. She didn't flinch when I explained the situation. She didn't soften her tone or ask if I wanted to work it out privately. She asked for documents. We compiled everything: credit reports, transaction histories, proof of my separate residence, the timeline of my departure versus the account openings. Marissa drafted a civil complaint for identity theft, fraud, and financial damages. She also prepared supporting documentation for potential criminal referral. We didn't send a courtesy warning. We didn't schedule a family meeting. We filed, and then we served. A process server delivered the papers to my parents' home on a Tuesday morning as my father was leaving for work. The service was public record within hours. In Westchester, reputation travels faster than facts. By the end of the week, the country club was whispering. 2 investors quietly pulled back from my father's pending deal, citing risk exposure. Brielle's management agency requested a formal statement regarding the allegations. One brand suspended her contract pending review. My mother was asked to step down from her charity board until the matter was resolved. No one had anticipated resistance. Their empire had always depended on perception, controlled narratives, curated appearances, carefully managed optics. But fraud filings don't blend into background noise. They echo. And for the first time, I wasn't backstage holding the structure upright. I was watching it destabilize from a safe distance. They came to my building on a Thursday evening. The doorman called up first. "Mr. and Mrs. Hart are here to see you." His voice was neutral, but I could hear the curiosity beneath it. I told him to send them up. When they stepped into my apartment, they looked different. Not physically diminished, but stripped of certainty. My father's suit was wrinkled. My mother's posture, once perfected for galas and photographs, seemed to fold inward. They stood in my living room, surrounded by furniture I had paid for myself. "We'll lose everything," my father said, skipping greetings. His voice was tight, almost brittle. "You have no idea what this will do." My mother's eyes were red. "You're destroying your family," she whispered, as if I had set fire to something sacred. I let the silence stretch. "I didn't destroy it," I said evenly. I stopped holding it up. There was no shouting, no tears from me, just terms. "You will sell the house," I continued. "You will liquidate non-essential assets. The debt in my name will be paid in full immediately." My father opened his mouth to interrupt. I didn't stop. "You will sign a written confession admitting to the fraud, so my credit is fully restored. And you will sign a no-contact agreement. Any future attempt to reach me voids the settlement." They stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was, they signed, not because they agreed, because they had run out of leverage. 6 months later, I drove past the house in Westchester. Not by accident, not out of nostalgia, just to confirm that it was real. There was a for sale sign planted neatly in the front lawn, framed by hedges my mother used to micromanage. The windows were bare. The driveway held a rented moving truck instead of my father's imported sedan. Brielle was sitting on the curb, scrolling on her phone. No ring light, no camera crew. No captions to filter the moment into something aspirational. Just silence. I didn't slow down. I didn't wave. I didn't feel anger rise in my chest or triumph settle in its place. I felt nothing. And that nothing was peace. Hate keeps you tethered. Indifference sets you free. I didn't burn the house down. I just stepped out and let gravity do its job. If you've ever been the invisible backbone of a broken system, you already know your power.